Hey guys, and welcome back. Now, I have these right here in my hand, but this is definitely not all of the ones that we read. These are just the ones that I grabbed quickly off the shelf to talk about, and I'm actually not going to talk about every book we read because that would be an incredibly long video. So, let's get started with just a few of these. I'm going to go ahead and start with the one on the top. So this was actually loaned to me by a good friend of mine from church. This book is really cute. I won't give too much of it because I hate spoiling books, so I'll just give you a basic idea of what it's about. So it's a fun little book all about these brothers and sisters banding together to create this little club within their family where they experience their best Saturday after pooling their resources together, and they take turns, each one of them on a Saturday, living their best Saturday life. So it's just a really cute book. And the next one, I actually grabbed this after hearing about it from Shannon over at Our Herd of Turtles, but it is The Adventures of Sammy the Jay. Now, Thornton Burgess is the author of this book, and he actually wrote a whole series. This is an older book series, but basically these books are written about different characters in nature and talks about their character, and it's a great way to teach your children about character through these characters in the book. That's a lot of character. Anyway, but this was really cute, and it was really relatable, and it talks about Sammy the Jay, who is very prideful and arrogant, and we can learn a lot from Sammy. So anyway, this was a really good book. It's not very long. Like I said, there are several of these that he wrote. I will link all of these books down below if you're interested in any of them. So the next one is, this is actually becoming one of my favorite authors for like young chapter books. Well, not young, but like around 3rd grade-ish or whatever. So we read this, A Lion to Guard Us. This is a commonly read book. I'm sure you've heard of it before. It's like on the Sunlight reading list and stuff like that. But this book was really good. It was a great book to read about the time when we were learning about Jamestown, because it references that. That's actually where, wait, I don't want to give it away. Anyway, it's just an incredible story about these children and their journey across the ocean, and all of the trials that they face, and it's just really good. It's really good. The ending, however, I do want to say, the ending was kind of a letdown. I felt like it ended kind of abruptly, but otherwise, it was a really good book. The next one was Pedro's Journal, and we read this one when we were learning about Christopher Columbus. It was pretty good. It's a good one to read when you're learning about that era of history, I think. So Pedro was apparently a real cabin boy on the trip with Columbus, and he really did apparently keep a journal. However, this is historical fiction, so it's adapted from that of course. But it was good. So it's written in the form of literally a journal. So this is the little entries and stuff like that. So it was a good book. We enjoyed it. And it's also not very long. This is a good one to do just with multiple ages in a family where you're trying to keep everybody's attention. I will say, going back to A Lion to Guard Us, so it says ages 8 to 12 is what this is appropriate for. If you have a really sensitive child, just be aware that it does talk about the death of a parent in this. And so, you know, I think that's important for you guys to know. So the next one, I'm sure you guys are going to hear about this book in this collab when you watch it after this video. But I'm sure several other people are going to talk about this book right here. So I think this book has been like incredibly active in the homeschool community this year, but it is an incredible book. So it took me honestly about halfway through the book for me myself to get into it, because I was like, I don't understand why everybody thinks that it's so great. So it got to a certain part in the book. I can't talk about it or it'll give it away. Anyway, there's a certain part in the book and it just like hit me in my heart. I'm an adoptive parent, if you all don't know that. So it has to do with that. But it was so good. And when it got to that part, that's where it really grabbed my heartstrings. So the first book is really good. My kids absolutely loved it. Like, absolutely loved it. Basically, it is a ship that is carrying all these robots. It's a cargo ship carrying all these robots in boxes. And it's in a hurricane, and in the shipwrecks, and all of these boxes are dashed against the rocks except for one box, which happens to have a certain robot in it. And so it is all about this robot being acquainted with the wild and all the adventures that happen within that. Now, what's really awesome is this book has a sequel. And the sequel, honestly, I think I would say is better than the first book. So, excellent book. Highly recommend. Make sure this is on your reading list, whether it's for summer reading or whatever. Your family's going to love this. So, The Wild Robot. And the second one, The Wild Robot Escapes. The next one was one of the first ones we read towards the beginning of this school year. And that is Strawberry Girl. I actually really like Lois Linsky. She wrote a lot of these type of books where she wrote about different families and cultures around the United States. But what's really cool is when I did a little more research on Lois Linsky, I think it's really cool because when she wrote these books, she actually went and she lived that lifestyle with the families that actually lived this way. And then she wrote about it from a perspective of someone who had actually experienced and immersed themselves in it, which I think is really awesome. Talk about a living book, right? So Strawberry Girl is about this family that moves to Cracker Country. It is an area in Florida, okay? So that's what it is about. So this family, they go and it talks all about the trials that they face. Part of it has to do with some really unruly neighbors. There's a lot to do with that. And it's just a really good book. Now, I will tell you though, it speaks in their dialect. So it may be really hard for you, especially if you're not someone who's from the South or is familiar with this dialect. It may be really hard for you to read this book. I am from the South and I have a really thick accent, but this was even kind of difficult in the first chapter or so for me to catch on to. But if you force yourself to speak as if you are them when you are reading the book, it actually becomes really easy to emulate. So this was a fun book to do as a read aloud and to do the voices with, because you can sink into the character and everything. And my kids loved Strawberry Girl. The next one is Toliver's Secret, which is a wonderful book to read if you are studying the American Revolution, especially if you talk about the secret spy ring during the Revolution. That is something you guys definitely need to make sure that you study when you're teaching your kids about this. So Toliver is actually Ellen Toliver. It is a girl, and she is going undercover to deliver a secret spy message during the American Revolution. And so it is all about her adventures during that journey. This was a good book. Okay, so the next book I want to talk about is a fun one to read during Thanksgiving, and it is The Hoboken Chicken Emergency. So this is a book that I shared in one of our morning basket videos that I remember my 3rd grade teacher reading to us, and I absolutely loved it and wanted to share it with my kids. So The Hoboken Chicken Emergency is about a boy who is asked to go get a turkey for Thanksgiving. However, he can't find one. And the only thing he can find is a giant, yes, a giant live chicken. And he brings it home. And it's all about the crazy adventures that happen after that. So that's a great book to put on your list if you want something fun to read around the November-ish time of year. Okay, so let's talk about books that were not a great fit for us this year. Some books that just didn't keep our attention, and so we kind of nicely put them to the side. So one of those books was actually a book called Mr. Revere and I. So I had high hopes for that book because it's actually by the same author as Ben and Me. I think it's called Ben and Me, or maybe it's Ben and I. But basically it is about the story about the ride of Paul Revere, written from the perspective of his horse. I thought, wow, that's going to be a great book, right? But it really, I don't even think we got through the whole first chapter. My kids were just kind of staring off into space, not really paying attention, which is unusual for them with a read aloud. Honestly, what lost them was really the vocabulary. And we've read some books that have some pretty extensive vocabulary in them. We did not actually finish that book. Okay, so we do really love audiobooks. However, I'm not going to go over every single thing. One of the things that we listened to was the Ramona series. We love the Ramona books. My oldest son also read some of them as well, but we as a family in the car, just driving to and from piano lessons or through the mountains or whatever, just riding around town, we listened to the Ramona book series, and those are just so much fun. And what's really cool about the audiobooks is that the audiobooks are actually narrated by Stockard Channing. I think that's her name. She played Riz in Grease, and she is an amazing narrator for those books. She's so much fun and makes it so exciting, and so my kids really enjoyed that. So the Ramona series, always one to love. Okay, so let's talk about another book that we just really couldn't get into, which is a little sad and disappointing because at first I thought it was going to be a great fit. It was fun. My kids were listening and enjoyed it, and it was The Voyages, yes, The Voyages of Dr. Doolittle. And it's a classic, you guys. So I thought, oh, this is going to be so much fun. And at first, it was. They really enjoyed it. But I don't know, somewhere along the way, it just was, they just were not paying attention. And so I tried to really push it and finish it out and go further in it. And we got almost to the halfway point, and it just was like hitting a brick wall. And they just really were not interested. And so maybe we'll try it again when they're a little bit older or something like that. Maybe we won't. You can't read and enjoy everything, right? So that was one that just for us was not one that we plowed through, which was a little disappointing, but it's okay. Okay, and the last one that I want to talk about, like I said, all of these books, this is not everything we read. This is only a few that I grabbed and that I'm highlighting and stuff like that, because some of the books we read we got from the library, and I honestly did not write them down, so I can't even begin to tell you what all the ones that we read this year. So the last book I want to talk about is one that, again, I'm sure all of you know and are familiar with, and that is The Hobbit. We actually have The Hobbit on compact disc. My husband actually bought it when we were in college, and we just have kept it ever since, and my oldest son is absolutely loving it. He loves The Hobbit. And so that's another book that we are starting to move into that series, The Hobbit and then The Lord of the Rings. And I'm a huge Hobbit fan, huge Lord of the Rings fan. I'm curious if any of you guys are too. We've already been through the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series. I do, however, want to go through that again either next year or the year after next. Just as my kids are getting older, just to go back through it. It's a wonderful series. It's well written. It's a classic. So that is the books that I'm sharing with you guys today and our review on those. Just a couple that just didn't work at all for us. And then the rest, like I said, too many to share. So I hope that this was helpful for you guys. I hope you got some ideas for your homeschool for next year, or even for summer reading, or maybe you don't homeschool. Maybe you're just looking for great read alouds to do as a family. But I hope that this video was helpful for you guys. Make sure to check out the playlist down below, because I know I am super excited to hear everybody's reviews of the read alouds they read in their homeschool as well. Make sure to check out everybody's channels below, especially Katie, who is our host. Thank you, Katie, again for hosting this. I love hearing everybody's reviews and their favorite read alouds. Make sure that you subscribe down below, because I'll be sharing more read alouds, including what our choices for read alouds are for next year and our summer read aloud choices. So thank you so much, guys, and have a blessed day.